Hi, welcome. We will install OpenVPN, configure it, and connect clients to it in this video. Before doing all of that, let us understand what OpenVPN is. Briefly speaking, OpenVPN is just like any other VPN, but you are fully in control. It is fully open source with the GPL licenses. Instead of the Microsoft PPTP protocol, it uses SSL and TLS. It is flexible and robust, as in it is completely user changeable and configurable, and it can be deployed in various types of hardware. Even now, we will try to deploy it on a Ubuntu based system with ARM64 and a Raspberry Pi with ARM HF. And other VPN providers like Surfshark or ExpressVPN, they also sign up through OpenVPN, making their VPNs also compatible with the OpenVPN. Right after deciding to go with OpenVPN, we have to finalize our hardware and the operating system that we are going to use wherever we are going to deploy this. I chose a Raspberry Pi because it is small and it's inexpensive, and you can just connect it to a router and just let it stay in a cupboard corner. So here I'm using the Raspberry Pi Etcher to try to boot a Raspberry or Raspbian OS onto it. And I'm also configuring the SSH here via itself, because this is going to be a headless install. It doesn't have a desktop in itself. So I have to SSH into my Raspberry Pi. If my version of Raspberry Pi were to support Wi-Fi, I could have configured that also right here. So I can configure my SSID details, and right after it boots up, it immediately searches for that SSID, Wi-Fi SSID, and goes with the password and connects to it. But mine doesn't support Wi-Fi, so I should just connect it through Ethernet. I'm just fast forwarding this. Now that the installation is almost complete, I can just take the SD card which I booted this into and plug it into my Raspberry Pi, connect power and Ethernet to it, and then see where this goes. And also, this is my current network topology. I use an SFR fiber internet. Within this topology, this is where the Raspberry Pi is going to come. It is not going to be the end device, neither it is going to be a part of the other devices either. Every packet will definitely be routed through it, but the end device is still going to be the router. Now that we have successfully booted up our Raspberry Pi, let us go and reserve an IP address for it. I'm logging into my SFR box. It has all my services in it, and I've connected the Raspberry Pi through Ethernet, which is why it shows up in the LAN devices. Now I need to go and reserve a static IP address to it. I'll go ahead and log in, and that is my Raspberry Pi with its MAC address and IP address assigned by the router's DHCP configuration. Now I will stop the DHCP configuration for now and make sure that the address is never assigned to any other device ever again. So I'm reserving it for 1.34, and I've punched in the MAC address of my Raspberry Pi so that it will always have this address no matter what. Just doing a quick ping test, everything's working. IP addresses are assigned, so we can go ahead and start our installation. We can SSH into our Pi and install it there. I will also demonstrate three different kinds of installations here. One is through a tool called PyVPN, and the other one is a script based on OpenVPN's direct install, and the other one is on Ubuntu. All of these are server installations. These are just different kinds of ways you can install your OpenVPN server on Unix. So first, I will show you the script that uses the regular OpenVPN installation. So this is the script here. If you go to OpenVPN's website by ourselves, there will be step-by-step guidelines on doing this. Instead of pushing each and every DNS option and configuring all of your RSA keys, this script has been developed by an open source engineer, and it's been published out there. So it is almost exactly identical to this official Raspberry OpenVPN installation pathing. So how to actually generate certificates and how to generate the keys, and after we generate vars, how do we assign these certificates and how do we sign these certificates. All of these commands are written into the script. We can just give our basic configurative details like the addresses and everything. So let me go ahead and confirm. It is asking if the IPv address is already reserved. Yes, we did that. The 1194 port is the default one for OpenVPN in general. I don't plan on changing it. And OpenVPN mostly chooses UDP all the time. I myself personally like the Cloudflare DNS, so you can choose your own option if you want to. And that is it. It'll go ahead and install the whole thing. This is the script based installation. You can also observe everything that is being run here. All those commands are directly given on the website on the left. Going into the easy for CRL file, creating a crl.pem, and creating server.configuration. It is creating all of these based on the options we've given earlier. Even writing private keys. All of these need to be individually generated, as in for we have to write the RSA commands and we have to generate our own SSL keys. But this script is just easing out a lot of process for us. There we go, all done. So we even were able to add a single client there. Now let's talk about the other tool that I keep referring to, the Pi VPN. This is specifically a tool made for Raspberry Pi to install VPN clients like WireGuard and OpenVPN. The difference from the script and this is that the commands would entirely change. We can no longer use the OpenVPN commands. We have to stick to the PyVPN commands, but the architecture is based on it. If we go on to the official OpenVPN website and try to install Raspberry Pi based OpenVPN, it will ask us to download the service or to put out the command into the terminal that would download it for us, and then we can configure it. Compared to this, PyVPN is much more highly focused specifically for Raspberry Pi. It is quite similar to the script that we used earlier. It is similarly asking whether DHCP is reserved and whether we want to stick to UDP and changing to OpenVPN. It is almost exactly the same as the script. And also, I would pull up the other third type of installation that I keep talking about, which also has all kinds of OpenVPN SAL CLI into it. It is the Ubuntu version. It is even easier than the both of these. I'm pulling out an Ubuntu terminal here. We should go out and install the CA certificates through the net tools. And after that, we can simply apt install OpenVPN. OpenVPN-AS is signifies access server. We cannot install the -AS on the Raspberry Pi. This is because -AS doesn't support the ARM HF architecture, which is what the Raspberry Pi would be using. It is a different kind of architecture in general. If we want, we can use the multi-architecture service to deploy on it, but it is not feasible entirely. So configuring the same DNS provider and everything on the right here through the PyVPN one, and on the left it's the Ubuntu terminal. I'll later show the GUI from Ubuntu, hiding my public IP address here on the right. And if you want, we can change the certificate length and everything, but we usually stick to 256 because anything more than that would be, for example, 512. It is good, but I don't think for such a small device it is. perfectly all right or feasible to be doing that. So I usually go by the default 256 bit length. Again, it's the exact same, using writing private keys and then creating certificates and then signing them. Let me go ahead and enable automatic updates here. Trying to highlight how similar both the OpenVPN official site and these tools are. In the meantime, let me also highlight a few advantages of OpenVPN. It is obviously very portable. It runs on a lot of operating systems. It is easy to use, and it's also rigorously designed and tested very robustly, even in unreliable networks. It uses the OpenSSL library with cipher independent interfaces, and it also uses the TLS protocol for key exchange. So it doesn't use the PPTP protocol, so it usually not as prone to threats. Now that the installation is completed, let us go ahead and verify and check it how it is done. Let us navigate into the etc OpenVPN folder. This is going to be almost identical for the PyVPN and the script based installation, or even if we went to OpenVPN and did it manually by ourselves. Yeah, within the OpenVPN folder, hitting ls is showing all of these files, multiple certificates, keys, and server configurations. Let us open the server.conf first. Observe that the protocol is set to UDP, and we have pushed the redirect gateway bypassing DHCP, which would make sure that the device bypasses DHCP and doesn't assign the same address again. The DNS servers are from the Cloudflare ones that I have selected. There's a defaultly selected cipher, and the authentication is set to SHA-256. We can go ahead and see the ca.certificate file, and even the Diffie-Hellman key exchange files are also here. We can go and open them too. So yeah, observe that we do not have the OpenVPN underscore AS here in the Raspberry Pi because of the architectural issue. We can find that in the Ubuntu one. Let us finally look at the web UI of the OpenVPN application. I try to install this on a regular Ubuntu from the OpenVPN website with the commands they've given, but looks like they did not update their configurations properly to detect OpenSSL 3. It kept on giving me the error saying that OpenSSL is not of the required version greater than 1.1.1, but I have the most latest version 3.0.0, which was released very recently. I didn't even find a proper solution for it. Later, I went out to the OpenVPN site and downloaded their VMware package, which is also hosted on based on Ubuntu. I just flashed into my VMware and then bridged the network with VMware, and it is still an Ubuntu based virtual machine. So I configured it there. So let us go ahead and check out the web UI of OpenVPN. Right after we deploy it, we will get our admin and client URLs. Now that we have a bridge network, it shares the IP range of my router and other devices. So it says this is how it looks, and the default password for OpenVPN should be OpenVPN NAS. That doesn't seem to be working. The default password for OpenVPN is the password created during installation. Okay, okay. Yeah, let us go back and hit the password that I created while installing. Similar to the OpenVPN scripts that we've installed in PyVPN, the same password, it'll be the setup would be quite similar to that. So let me go ahead, put in my username and password. Yes, and go ahead and agree these terms. This is the OpenVPN web UI. Now only two VPN connections are allowed because I'm in the free tier. I can go get an activation key if I wanted. And instead of only UDP, this is catering to both TCP and UDP. For TCP, it's choosing port 443 and UDP 1194. If I want to set up a cluster of servers, I can create that here. And it is showing the current settings of my thing. And you can see I can even change the port numbers of TCP UDP if I want. It is in a multi-daemon mode where it is accepting requests from both TCP and UDP. So this is a VPN IP network where all the clients that are connected to the VPN will be given this particular address range. I can configure their DNS, their resolution. I can even put up my own domain suffix if I had one, but I really didn't configure any domain suffix for now. Within the advanced VPN settings, I can configure if my clients can be connected multiple times. This is how VPN companies like NordVPN or they would see how many number of clients they've configured if they are going through the OpenVPN architecture. Here, if I have my certificate files from my clients or other servers, I can upload them here and I can validate them. So this is the user management section of the web UI. Let me go ahead and create a user here. Let this be a passwordless user creation. For user authentication, other than the only web server based thing, I can also enable the Google Authenticator. OpenVPN supports that. If you want a specific server profile, you can configure all of your settings into a profile and then activate that profile. Based on these profiles, you can quickly change up multiple settings at the same time. So I'll go ahead and create the user here. I'll allow auto login for him. So the user is created and he can now access the website and directly log in. I can log into it with any device, but let me go ahead and try logging it here only once to test it out. I am typing in the client URL, which is almost the exact same URL but without the admin at the end. And I'll punch in the credentials. I think the passwordless installation didn't work properly. Let me give a password here, saving that, and coming back here to punch in the login ID and password, and we are good to go. The user can download any of these clients and then connect to OpenVPN. Thank you.